Hi, my name is Tom. I'm currently a teacher at Hisar School in Istanbul, Turkey, and I'll be talking to you about the effect of social media on English language learners. So, the content of this talk is looking really at the differences in language for English language learners, native and non native, the change in the learning environment since the introduction and explosion of social media, and how does this fit into our lives as teachers, and what can we do to make sure that learners aren't negatively impacted by huge usage of social media. So again, we're really focusing the topic of discussion based on the differences in language between adults and children, and how there is such a divide between the usage of a language, English language, between adults and children. Uh, Rita Mae Brown said that language is the roadmap of a culture, and it tells you where its people come from and where they're going. And this is really applicable because this goes in line with how differences occur. And we're not just looking at differences between native English speaking countries, because there are vast differences between the users of English and native speaking countries, such as Australia, Canada, the UK, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and America, but also the differences between areas within those different native countries. I'm speaking specifically about conjugations, colloquialisms, slang, cross generational phrases and idioms, which have been phrases and idioms that have been passed on through generations. And of course, the introduction of new generationally created language from younger generations amongst all native countries, and the amalgamation of language from different native English speaking countries. Of course, there's a much larger impact coming from the United States and maybe the UK, you might say, as they're much larger users of social media platforms. We can see, based on the statistics of social media users, North America, North Europe, Western Europe, Central America, even Southern America and Southeastern Asia are huge users of social media, which leads on to the statistic that because of this and because more developed countries are using social media platforms, the most commonly used languages on the internet, or the most common used language on the internet, is English. And therefore, because our social media platforms, be it Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, are coming from English speaking countries, that English is the more commonly used language within these platforms. And of course, the impact is that learners or non-native learners are learning the differences between English countries and their languages, different conjugations, colloquialisms, slang, and so on, and new generationally created language, which again won't be language that will be within the standardized format of English. So the problems of this type of language acquisition are not fully knowing how to implement this type of language. Much of the language can be considered rude or very impolite, and um, obviously this language deviates from the standard use of English and may not even be understood by other English speakers. From experience working in a very multicultural office, I've experienced where my colleagues may not be talking about what I'm talking about, and vice versa, because of the differences in use of vocabulary. But how do we embrace this as teachers? We need to educate learners on the importance of the difference between standard and non-standard English, the difference between language of English users between countries, but regions, classes, and backgrounds. How such language cannot be applied into academic language or in the use of standardized assessment tools. And if a learner does wish to use language, it must be understood in which settings it can be used and whom with, and this must be seriously considered by the user. And of course, the promotion of open discussion, for them to be able to feel free to open discussions of a newly acquired vocabulary, no matter the topic, and to take on the personal responsibility of fully understanding vocabulary if they wish to continue using it. And for us to need to be aware of the evolving language and be able to advise students on the usage of such words, and to promote open and non-judgmental conversations around language. I hope that gives you a brief idea of where I believe we need to be acting, how we need to be acting in the classroom.